Welcome to the Celtic Way Sit Down with Tony Haggerty, and I'm delighted to be joined by my guest today to talk me through his top five Celtic moments. This man needs no introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. He had a wonderful 20-year football career. 15 of those years were with Celtic, and he also turned out for Norwich, Reading, and Bournemouth. He played for Celtic between 1982 and 1997. He's got two international caps for Scotland. He won three Scottish titles, league titles with Celtic. No, sorry, two Scottish league titles with Celtic and three Scottish cups. And he's also managed Norwich, Fulham as a caretaker, Alloa and Dunfermline. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the wonderful Peter Grant. Peter, first and foremost, thank you so much for appearing on the show. Really appreciate it. Can't wait to hear your top five. And if you like what we do, you can see the strap line along the bottom, ladies and gentlemen. We always ask you and implore you to subscribe to the Celtic Way website and help support top quality football journalism covering the club you love. And we ask you to hit that subscribe button at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Mr. Grant, how are you?
I'm fantastic, Tony. Thank you very much for inviting me on. I know you're some
Pleasure's
special
all
guest
mine.
prior. Sorry, I'm take the standard down. Sorry.
not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. We've just started doing it. It's a recent thing, and it's been some wonderful feedback from it. So you are another welcome addition to the Pantheon of Celtic Way sit downs, and I'm delighted to have you here. But life treating you well? All good?
Life's been good. A little bit bored in the respect of I must be involved in the game, obviously, and people think you lose your enthusiasm for it and wonder why you'd want to be involved in it when managers last about 5 minutes nowadays. But I think it's the closest you can get to, obviously, the dressing room when you played, that camaraderie you had in the dressing room. And obviously, I have great enthusiasm for the game. I love watching it. I love being involved in it. I love coaching it. So I'd love to be back involved full time. But unfortunately, at this moment in time, all I can do is go to the gym early in the morning and try and keep fit.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for you, Peter, that you get your wish somewhere along the line this season or in the future. But as I say, Peter's here, Celtic Way sit down. He's here to talk us through his top five Celtic moments. So without further ado, Peter, we'll just launch into number five. You can take it away, sir.
Number five probably maybe comes a little bit strange. I'm putting it as far back as Airdrie Cup final 1995. And the reason for that is it was such a relief more than anything else. It wasn't an enjoyable day. It wasn't an enjoyable build-up for myself, obviously, because I thought I was going to be missing the final. And obviously went through a torturous period, obviously leading up to that. So there was a lot of pressure on. Then I picked up the injury at Tannadice, which I thought was going to be the end for that again. I'd missed a few cup finals and big days because of injury or illness. And I thought this was another one. And I remember the build-up to the game was bizarre in the respect of that, because we went to Italy. I wasn't obviously with the players. Tommy had only taken me along as a token gesture, really, because I was part of the group. I was told I'd be minimum of 12 weeks been out. And I remember coming off at Tannadice that day, and Tommy taking me in the car, actually, at the hospital, because he didn't want me going in an ambulance. And the two were devastated in the car and whatever. So, by the by, then the build-up to the game that week, which was a few weeks later, a miracle occurred in the respect of I was out the back practicing with the ball, I had a brace and that on, and I was side-footing the ball off the wall, and my wife Lorraine caught us and she said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I feel okay." And I went in the next day and I said to the gaffer, Tommy, I said, "Listen, I think I've got a wee chance." He's like, looking at me, "Listen, son, I told you for another 12 weeks or something." I was like, "I know," I said, "but I've been doing some stuff at home, and I think, for one game, and it's one game and one game only, I think I can do it, By the by, and I think because Tommy was a friend and a teammate and then became a manager, obviously, and obviously he gave me an opportunity to make a fool of myself, really. So I went to training, first ball come up and I was like, I was cringing, caught outside of my toe, a bit of pain, obviously, but I never showed nothing, nothing, I never even flinched. And trained, got through it, managed to get through it. Tommy phones me that night. I says, I feel fine. He said, right, listen, I'm giving you to tomorrow morning. The next morning came, he said to me, how are you feeling? And I says, I'm ready. And he just looked at me, okay, no problem. Trained that afternoon and managed to play in the match. But the biggest thing was, I think you see, at the end of the game, there was just relief for everyone. And I think people forget, there's a few of the boys who'd only played a season at the club, a couple of seasons. There was a few years who'd been through torturous 6 years.
Yeah.
And obviously Tommy had been manager as well. It was a sheer relief. It wasn't a great game in any stretch of the imagination for anyone to be involved in watching or playing. But the relief at the end when the final whistle went and knowing we were winners again. And I think that's something that, and it was obviously my last medal as well for Celtic before I left. And it was something I'll always treasure in the respect to that I didn't finish that going all the years without winning anything again. So that's why it comes at number 5. I know people think, oh, maybe a bit, they should make that number 1, but far from it. It was number 5, and it's lucky again at number 5. It was only because of the situation we were in.
You get man of the match that day?
Yes, I did. Listen, I was fortunate enough I played quite well in the
That
game.
tackle on Steve Cooper that everybody talks about, the kind of
Alan
stretch.
Lawrence. I think it was Alan Lawrence.
Sorry, yeah.
And I think
Lawrence,
it was the reason it was, maybe people talk about it more because Alan's very quick and I'm not the quickest. And I think it was just, and I think at the end of it, I think people talk about it more than anything was because that's when it opened the knee back up again. That was me done. And I've said to Brian Scott, the physio at the time, Scott, he comes on and I says, how long have I gone? He said, I said, it's gone again. I said, I know it has. He said, listen, there's only 5 to go or something like that. And he said, just dig in. And the referee, I think, was Les Mortrim, if I'm right. And Les said, Peter, he's only kidding you, there's over 10 to go. So that wasn't the news I was looking for. But I managed to get through it. And as I say, I suffered for it after, but it was well worth the suffer. You know, there was absolutely no doubt of that. And as I say, just at the end, you see some of the pictures of Paul and Tommy and myself and Tommy and the players and whatever. And as I say, it was just sheer relief for everyone. You could sense it off the supporters. You could sense it off the players. And as I say, especially the ones that have been there through all the torturous times. And it was a fantastic. And for the likes of Tommy as manager and Paul as skipper, I was delighted for both of them as well, because that's the least they deserve for the careers they'd had at the club.
I was going to say, I have a personal relationship with you and we've done various things down the years, but the one man you love and adore is Tommy Burns. And I've spoken to many people about Tommy Burns, and no one has a bad word to say about Tommy Burns. He is, into my mind, a modern day sainted man, or he certainly should be. It's just you come across people like that once in a lifetime, and he's a unique man in Celtic's history, isn't he, Peter?
Very much so. So, as you say, a player which I remember my first day going into Celtic as a 15-year-old full time. The first 2 players really that I got most respect for at that particular time was Tommy and the great Danny McGrain. And I just followed them about like a lapdog, really, to see what they've done. Danny, because Danny was, for me, the best player in my watching history. Obviously, one of my heroes when I was younger was Bobby Murdoch. And I could only see fleeting glimpses of him because I think it was more through my father loved him and I just followed Bobby Murdoch then, you know. But Danny was the first one that I'd probably taken a hero of myself and thought, this is, how does Danny McGrain be the best? Everything he does, whether he's playing right back, left back, whatever, in completely different position for me. And I just watched him every day in training, the way he trained, the way he went up after it. We had no such thing as a gym or that. And him and Tommy got to stay with coats on, actually, and we'd doing sit-ups and wall sits. There was no fancy bars or whatever, you know, or fancy hot gyms, you know. And they were up there with coats on. It was so cold. But that separated them a little bit because I felt as if, well, that's the professionalism you need to be to reach the top. Bear in mind, Danny was captain at Scotland and Celtic and won numerous trophies. And that's the only one, if you're going to follow a leader, follow the best. And they took him into that category. And then, obviously, I was there a lot longer with Tommy as a teammate and friend. And we just seemed to hit it off. I don't know why. You know, I think the two of us were obviously great tradition of Celtic supporters loving the club, but there was a few of the boys like that we loved the club and supporters and whatever. And with a lot of great belief and faith, that meant a lot
Yeah.
to us. So we shared that with difficult times. We're very much, I don't know, brought my tradition that you had to respect everyone that you bumped into in your life. Your pleases and thank yous were more important than anything else. And they were wee things that always stuck with me. And we became very close. And probably the period we were probably separated most was when he became the manager. Because I say we used to go on holiday and that together, but then you become the manager, and I very rarely spoke to him then, because I just felt it was a difficult relationship in the respect of that for Tommy. So instead of that, where I used to speak every day, all of a sudden I'd only speak to him at the training ground or whatever. And that was that, we had a fantastic mutual respect for each other. But that changed a little bit. And then, as I said, when it changed again, when he went to Reading as manager as well, and then he asked me to go down there and all that sort of stuff. So we were very close, and I loved him to bits. And it was obviously a very, very sad loss and difficult time for us all, especially his family. But it was tough every day. It was tough every day. And I remember getting the last phone call that he'd obviously had a couple of weeks prior. I'd been out with him and Rosemary had phoned us and asked us to come back to Glasgow. I was living in England at the time, obviously. And we managed to get a meal out, me, him and Rosemary. And I remember Rosemary saying to me a couple of days later, she said, listen, and it always stopped me and broke my heart really, because he says, I needed to get that because I think that's the last time I'll see Granty. And that was in the car driving away. So the memories, I don't take away the good, but obviously they're very emotional at times as well. So a special, special man as well as a special footballer.
There's never a day goes by when you'll probably not think about him, Peter. I would have thought, you miss him
I
every
always
day of
keep
your
him in
life.
my prayers, Tony, as you know what life's about. You always keep him in your prayers.
Of
They're
course.
always up there watching them, so you look after it and you just think about him every day. And as I say, it's one of the ones, like I'm sure many people do, you never take the phone number out your phone. That's always there. So
can't do it.
We simple things. He's always there. But no, he was a special man, never been a special footballer. As I say, a special person, and I was very, very fortunate enough. I became a firm friend, and over the years we spent many good times and bad times.
I mean, I'm fortunate enough to do this job, and it's an honour and a privilege, but just everybody lights up when they talk about Tommy Burns. Even Alistair McCoist, who I'm quite friendly with as well, and he loved him to bits, and Walter as well. So, I think it's wonderful that his memory lives on, and everybody still likes to talk about him whenever the opportunity arises. It's always with fondness
I think you've seen
that they speak about him, and I think that says a lot about the man, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you see that, Tony. Obviously, when we were carrying his coffin, people were surprised, saying breaking the divide and whatever. That wasn't the case. Tommy wasn't doing that for show. That was the way he felt, And as I say, Alistair and Walter, fantastic people as well, and Ian Geranson. It doesn't matter what colour you wear, At the end of the day, you've got to respect, and there was a mutual respect through that period of time with all the players. Really, I can't remember anybody having a hatred for anyone. On the pitch, would have killed them for 2 points or 3 points when it became 3 points. Would have killed them. As soon as the final whistle went, you shook their hand, got off with it. We never criticised them, never critical of them, with the utmost respect, because we knew that every one of them was going through the exact same as us, only they were doing it for a different side of the city.
It's the nature of the game, isn't it, Peter? That's what you want to win, and that's it. It doesn't matter who you're playing.
Absolutely. It didn't matter who I was playing. It didn't bother me who I was playing. I had the utmost respect for everybody I played against. People say, who was this one? How was that one? There was not one guy I didn't think, no, he's doing the same job. He's trying to do the best for him, and I'm trying to do the best for myself. It didn't matter who they were, And you got close to certain guys and other guys you didn't, because that was just the way where you lived or whatever. But there was as I say, there was always a respect there. And as I say, there was a divide that Tommy crossed on that particular day, and it was fantastic to be part of, even on such a sad occasion. But I think it just shows you that obviously in life, there's things more important, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that was number 5, and that's my abiding memory of Tommy, is those pictures of yourself and him and Paul McStay crying. It's one of my abiding memories of the Scottish Cup final against the terrible game, great header to win it from Pierre, man of the match from yourself, and that tackle on Alan Lawrence. And I think that kind of sums it up, doesn't it? That was it, because that's all that happened. Really.
Well, exactly. I mean, as I say, I don't I don't think I've ever watched the game. That
Yeah.
tells you enough. I don't think I
Yeah.
ever watched the game. And that wasn't out of saying it was big, a bad game, poor game, whatever. I just think Celtic always had an expectation to win trophies year in, year out, and we didn't
Yeah.
during that period. And it was nobody's fault. You know, your life goes on. You know, that was just meant to be during that period. And as I say, many people say to me, you know, wish you lived during a different period or whatever, and won more trophies or whatever. I say, well, no, I'd have loved to have won more trophies, of course, but I wouldn't have loved to. I wouldn't have been able to do the things and the
Yeah.
pressures we were under and the negativity and the relief and the great times either. So there was a million things all in amongst all the years, you know, good, bad, and different. And as I say, that's why I was very fortunate to do it during that period or do it at any time. So you just have to respect that was the cards you were dealt with at that particular time. And as I say, I have absolutely no complaints whatsoever.
Number 5. Number 4, Peter, on your list of top 5 Celtic moments?
Probably because it was always a dream, and that was playing against Rangers in the Cup final, 1989. I'd missed obviously the 88 Cup final. I'd missed 85, and I was like this. Got 89. I wanted to play. I'd always dreamed of playing for Celtic and against Rangers in a Scottish Cup final, because when you're a kid growing up, you had the television and whatever, you're portable or whatever at that particular time. You used to see the build up to the cup finals and whatever, and it was magic. You know, it was magic where it was down south and up here, running side by side with each other. And for me, it was always what a dream that would be, the last day of the season, the sun out, and to beat Rangers in a cup final. That would be the ultimate dream as a kid. And you used to practice it up the back. Didn't matter what cup final was on,
Yeah.
who scored the goals. You went out and done it like everyone else. You were out with your pals, or you were out with yourself and made a set of goals yourself, you know, in the close, whatever. You know, but there was all these superstar names that you thought you'd never dream of seeing or knowing or whatever. And the cup final for me was always Celtic Rangers wanting to score the winner, you know. So this game maybe sounds strange. I know people talk about the bizarre goal and whatever we got with Joe's goal, but also the fact that it stopped Rangers winning the treble at that particular time after, you know, all the monies and people talk about being spent. And that's why we never ever spoke about the monies. Rangers are good, really, really good players and top quality players. So that's fine. No problem with that, you know, whatsoever at that particular time. But you always have to try and find a way instead of making an excuse. So we never, if we ever lost, we never ever said, oh, it was down to them because they spent more money or whatever. We never ever went down that, or the pitch was wrong, or this was wrong, or that was wrong. Never ever was that mentioned. So you had to go and earn that every time you went. And we went into the game, obviously, probably as underdogs. Rangers are flying. And as I say, now all of a sudden the dream appears. Here you go. This is the one you've been waiting on. Cup final day. Beautiful sunshine. Hampden Park, full Celtic, and magic. Everything you wanted, you'd stood there yourself. And that was the ultimate, you know, for me, as a one-off game that you wanted to play and making sure it was the last game of the season, you were going away with a cup win, and what a fantastic way to do it. And I say, really, really pleased at that particular time that one of the dreams that, as I say, of all the dreams you have, that was one of them that came alive at that particular moment. And I remember, just as a final whistle went, when you're waiting to go up and get your medals and whatever, that was the thing. That was the first thing that came into my head. This is the thing you've been dreaming of. For all the other things you've done so far and been lucky enough to do so far, this is the one that you always wanted. And now you've got an opportunity, and you've actually done it, and you've managed to win the game against Rangers in the Scottish Cup final.
And you spoke about Big Roy the boy just stealing the throw in. I mean, the referee's not to think that there's going to be a goal come from that attack, is he? He probably thought nightmare. And then Big Roy launched it in the Celtic end.
Absolutely, at the corner.
And then yourself doing Joe Miller a favour because he was off ski. He was
Yes,
running towards the Rangers supporters, and you rugby tackled him or got him by the waist in case he did something stupid, which he was on his way to doing because he was away. Yeah, you'd been there before at
I'd
the
been there
game,
before,
the
but
Ibrox
I
game
know
the
the
season before.
criticism
Yeah,
that come with it. You know, and I don't know if it make sense of myself for the first time ever, probably in my life. You know, that a bit of sense had come over me at that particular moment. And listen, it was a special moment for Joe, and I wanted to enjoy every moment. It's just a pity it wasn't up the other side. We could have enjoyed it more. That was the only thing. But as I say, it was great. And it was great for all the boys because that was a great group of boys, a fantastic group, good players, character, guts, determination. As I say, it didn't matter much money and what players you had. You knew when you went out for 90 minutes, you had to play to try and win, and that particular group had that bit of steel in them, that they knew there were moments that would be tough. You'd have to ride. As I say, we went into it as underdogs. And nobody likes that tag, even people say, it's good to get in as underdogs. Nobody likes it. You want to get in there as hot favourites and you want to take it on, you want to be the winners. And obviously, Rangers rightfully so went in. They're very good players, a very good side. Top English international makes us the error for the goal, obviously, with the pass back. But I don't think Joe got the credit for how quick and how nimble it was and what a great finish it was, on the goal, and everybody talks about the throw in because I start running and Roy picks it up and I tried a long diagonal pass, it gets cut out as normal, and then Mark jumps with Terry Butcher, I think it was, and Terry sort of misheaded it up in the air, and it's came to Gary, and Gary's tried to pass it back, and Joe was on it like a flash, and bang, it was in the back of the net, and it was great, it was great, and it was another one of the ones you were, as I say, laughing with Big Roy in the corner because me and him in the corner, and then you lose possession. It was a short sort of corner, a short free kick. Big Roy turns and boots right into the Celtic fans, and it's something always I laugh about now when somebody sends you a clip and say, "Can you remember this?" Or me and Roy are that are sitting together somewhere, and all these later years we start reminiscing, and they're one of the moments that always come up.
And as you say, I think it's brilliant because you do regress to when you were a kid. You did reenact the Scottish Cup final. I don't care what anyone says. I know winning the league was always important, but there was something wonderful about the Scottish Cup final, wasn't there? And especially when you grew up, watched it on ITV or BBC, and they would show you the FA Cup final for Wembley as well, and you were always like, "Oh, that looks great!" But it was just a wonderful day. And when the team that you weren't, the team obviously that you supported, when Celtic weren't in it, you felt kind of lost. There was a void on Cup final day, wasn't there? So whenever they were
You
in
thought
it,
you were
it was
missing out on
brilliant.
something.
Yeah.
You thought you
And
were
as you
missing out on
say,
something. It's a special build-up, and it's like, I don't know, somebody's wedding, a special, really special occasion. It was just one of these things. It was a special occasion, and that's why the fact that semi-finals and all that, you didn't play them at Hampdens or anything like that, or particular the final was there. That was what you wanted.
yeah,
You always wanted the final at that particular time, and to get there, you had to earn it, whatever it was, And Celtic Rangers fight semis, and sometimes we get put, but that dream, your team bus, probably a wee bit slightly different in Glasgow where you weren't allowed to get the streets and the team bus or whatever. But as you say, they moments driving back, even getting into the bus after the game, getting back to Celtic Park, you know, just different. It just felt different, and it was elation. And as you say, you had their moments, and I don't think, and that's why people say the players get fed up winning or they don't try, and that's why I always throw that out the window. There's no such thing, because there is nothing better than winning something or being successful. And as I say, I had enough torrid time, so I know what that felt like. So I always say, and embrace every moment of it and make sure you try and get more and more. Never ever get fed up with it, because the feeling of the other side of it is not very nice, to say the least. And as you say, we used to go out and you were out the front street, you were looking for your pals, but it was the only time there was
yeah,
nobody out, and then
yeah.
you could tell what
That's
half was coming out. If it was a Celtic Rangers Cup final, you could tell what half was coming out after it, you know what I mean,
yeah,
to play. And it was great, and it was great memories as a kid, and it was fantastic memories, obviously, when you had the opportunity to live it for real. And as I say, that's why, as I say, you're picking some of these moments, they come flashing back, because people send you things now. I don't do social media, but people always send you an old picture or something like that, and it brings back memories, and you think, oh God, I remember that.
yeah,
I forgot about this, or I forgot about that. And as I say, that was something that I was just thinking when you asked me the question the other day there, it was something that stuck in my mind, and think, well, they were one of the dreams that you had, you know, and well, how do you go about it? Can't buy that. It doesn't matter how much finance you've got, anything like that. You can only earn that. We've been fortunate, and I was very, very fortunate enough to one pull on at the strip and then played the Scottish Cup final against Rangers and won it. So that's why that comes in as number 4.
Now, on the team bus in the way there was a certain Maurice Johnson on the Celtic team bus.
I was sitting next to Mo, and we were going to the game because we were friendly.
Yeah,
we were friendly for the first. We were friendly for the first period there, and obviously starting Blythe going down in the bus, and I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was brilliant for the manager and the fact that it brought Mo to the game, and the fans were excited about Mo coming back and all that. Obviously, and there was no doubt he was a top quality striker. It was going to be a fantastic signing for us, and it was great to see him. It was part of the build up. Obviously, couldn't play, and sitting with him on the bus talking about it, he was saying there was everything was sorted, but there was one or two things just had still to be signed. Well, does I know, because I think the next I was in the Scotland squad. I think we played the Rouse Cup after the cup final, if I remember right.
That's right.
We played England and Chile. And I was in the squad. So we went down to Ayrshire, the normal, I can't remember which hotel or whatever. And I remember the manager, Big Billy, God rest him, was coming down to see Morris, finalise things, whatever. But I remember we were going to training, and I seen the gaffer storm and sort it out. But he always had that walk anyway, chest out, shoulders back, walking. And I just thought, he doesn't probably feel comfortable down here because it's a national team and because it's more, and that's the way the gaffer was. He's a Celtic manager for sure. So he's going away. But then I remember going onto the bus to go to training, and Mo and Ali were sitting blethering and whatever. And he comes like, wee man, we'll terrorise you next year, Coist, the usual one, sort of give you a bit of banter. I know the two as well, we will terrorise you next year, don't you worry about that, Coist. He went, no, I mean us too. I'm sort of looking at it, and he's like, the wee man's going to sign for us. And I'm like, very good, sort of thinking, good. I said, wishful thinking and all that sort of stuff. Well, I didn't know what was coming over the next few days, and I still think it was a massive blow to us, and that was part of the reason what happened for the next few years, to be perfectly honest with you. I genuinely believe that. And it's not the fact that Morris didn't sign for us. That had been a blow in itself. But no way in this earth should have been allowed to go to Rangers. I'd have moved heaven and earth, to make sure he wasn't going to Rangers. If it was over finance or whatever, he just couldn't lose it. Lose it Manchester United or whatever, but you can't lose him to Rangers in that respect. And unfortunately, as I say, what unfolded over the next few days wasn't great for us. And as I say, over the next few years, I genuinely feel there's moments we'd have won games, draws have been victories, losses would have been victories. There's no doubt, because of the type of striker it was. And the type of personality was round about your dressing room as well. He was never too big or whatever. He was a good character, trained exceptionally well. And I think people forget that he was a really good professional on the training pitch. And he was a top quality striker. So that was a massive blow all round, and one that obviously surprised, devastated, shocked. And as a teammate, it took me a long time to go over it. And I think the next time I was actually in his company after being close to him was we went to play Benfica in Toronto. When Tony was manager, and we went over to Benfica in an international break, and that was the first time Morris was the general manager. So it was the first time I've seen him since then. We went out and had a few drinks after that, and sat in a blather about it, just the two of us, right into the small hours of the morning. Was that bad? I can't remember. But as I say, and he said his piece and I said my piece, and that was it. It was all forgotten. But I got on exceptionally well with him, but that was a devastating blow. There was absolutely no doubt for the club, supporters, and us as teammates. It was a massive blow, especially because it was Rangers.
And I agree. I think it took Celtic a few years to recover from that, as you say, 6 years after that before they won a trophy. But we'll not dwell on that. That's number 4. So top 3 time, Peter. So number 3 in your top 5 Celtic moments.
Top 3 was because the reason it happened was in the centenary season. We played Hibs away, and it was really the last, what we'd call, real tough one away from home. Easter Road was always difficult. It was mobbed with Celtic supporters as usual. Couldn't buy a ticket for love nor money everywhere. And we won 2-0. But little did I know, I scored the first one. Andy Gorham, God rest him, was in goal. Yes, and I scored the goal, the first goal, the first half. And then Andy Walker scored a great header for an Anton Cross, I'm sure it was. Andy scores a brilliant header in the second half to win 2-0. And that was the day I felt, and I think everybody felt, that was a League One. But it was also devastating for me because I'm not sure if it was my last game, because I think we played on the Tuesday night and I played about 85 minutes. I think we had to play a game because the Scottish Cup final was the semi-final was coming up. And for Frank McAvenny to be available, there was a game had to be put on and we were playing St Mirren. I don't know if it was a Tuesday after that particular game. And I broke my foot. So it was devastation. So if we're going for elation to devastated, would be an understatement. I was fortunate enough to score, as I said, the first goal. And I think later on in the game, I had a similar effort. And it just Andy saved it, put it by the post off for a slight deflection. But that was the day we genuinely felt in the dressing room that was it. It was coming back to us. There was no doubt in that in our mind. And I think the relief for that was because of the pressure of centenary. 88, an unbelievable group of players. You went to it's beyond whenever you could believe, Hearts, semi-final, obviously, the cup final. But there was games that we were in as well. I'm not sure if it was that particular season. I think it was, but I'm sure we scored a penalty in the 94th minute early in the season. I'm not sure if Morton won the league at the time. Maybe I'm getting it wrong. And Big Roy scored a penalty in the 94th minute. And I think we won 1-0. But with some unbelievable performances in that season, considering the last pre-season game prior to it, we ended up getting beat 5-1 with Arsenal. And it was torturous. We only Archdeacon scored an absolute worldie. We get beat 5-1. And I think everybody was fearing the worst that particular season. Little did we know what was to come. And it was probably, it was as joyful a year as you're going to get in every respect. As I say, unfortunately for the end, it ended in catastrophe for me with breaking the foot, trying to get back. The manager trying to get me back for the semi-finals and final, taking the taking the Stuckey off in the morning and then playing a game of that evening, getting the Stuckey off in the morning, playing that evening behind closed doors match to see if I could play in the final. And God rest Billy, he came to the room that night because I was close, but I just couldn't. I knew I was still limping and whatever, and I knew the bone hadn't healed. And Billy came up to the room that night. He just said to me, he said, "I'm coming up to see you." Just a chap at the door. He said, "You're no fit, son, are you?" I went, "No." He said, "I knew that." He said, and obviously it's devastating for you because you've missed a couple of finals and whatever. I said, "Yeah." I said, but he said, "Listen, just go on your walk." So, because we were going to have a team meeting and it was just before we named the team and whatever. And I just knew in my heart of hearts, so I had to go way along and walk along Seamill at the front with the rain in my face and whatever, just trying to blow away the tears because I was devastated yet again that I'd missed out on a big occasion. And that was just the way it was. But I never turn away from the fact the enjoyment I got over the cup final, being part of the centenary team. So I played a lot of the games, obviously. Fortunate enough to play with some fantastic players. And as I say, it's a group of players. It's very much kept in contact. And I think that says enough about that particular season. But it was a devastating way to, as I say, going for the high, the game at Easter Road, probably was punching it, to go into the devastating lows that I was having over the next few weeks, which obviously became, and then after that ended up with an illness which kept me out for 5 months. I ended up catching hepatitis. We're trying to get back fit for the cup final, believe it or not. I was drinking the water in at the park and they said there was obviously a bug in the water, and that's what obviously went into my system, and I wasn't able to play again till December time, I think it was. We played on Boxing Day, was my first game. We played against the Red Star Belgrade, the great Red Star Belgrade team, in a friendly match on Boxing Day. So it went for obviously a magnificent high. to a devastating low. But it's still a memory that I'll always cherish with that group of players, because winning the league and cup double with them in that special season and always been known as the centenary team is something that I can
going to
take
say
to.
no. Yeah, you're great. Nobody can take that away from you. And the centenary season, and I've said this before on various pods, I was at every match that season, home and away. So I know the goal you're talking about. I know the celebration. You had the yellow strip with the green shorts on,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and it screamed into it. And Hibs had the green nets, didn't they?
that's correct.
And yeah, I remember it, and just everything about that season, as you say. I think Big Billy summed it up best when he said, "There's a fairy tale about this club," and it just happened to be
Absolutely.
that season. And I've often referenced this as well. There was a wonderful Scott Sport tribute on the next day in praise of Caesar, it was called. And at the end, Ian Archer name checks you all, and you get Peter Grant in plaster, and and it fades out. It shows you the team, the 1988 photo, and then it cuts to the 1888 photo when you all get dressed up and you all had the moustaches,
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
and
Yes.
it's a wonderful tribute to, as you say, a wonderful band of brothers and a wonderful team who will be revered as the double winning team in Celtic centenary season. And it's and I urge any Celtic supporter who's not watched that tribute to watch it and then go into a darkened room and cry, because it's really, really emotional. And when they do the two pictures, then it fades to the background. And I just think what yourself saying there, nobody can erase that from history. It will never be, and people will still talk about it in 100 years, and they'll name that team and they'll pick out various moments. And as you say, that goal at Easter Road, Andy Walker's chest at Ibrox, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. Paul McStay screamer at Ibrox, and that 2-1 win, which is part of that documentary as well. And it is just a wonder. It is a fairy tale season. I don't think Billy McNeil could have summed it up any better. And as you say, brilliant to hear that all the guys keep in touch.
absolutely. And it was fantastic that Billy being the first British captain
Yeah,
to win the European Cup, British team, lead the British team to it. And he was a manager of the centenary year. As you say, unfortunately, we've lost some of the guys, Tommy and Billy, and
yeah,
that's devastating, and that's things that bring it home to you a little bit. And that's why moments that you can't really replicate, and you will never be able to replicate. And you feel a wee bit like when the Lisbon Lions get together now, there's not so many of them left. And that's the way our team feels at times. There's always somebody missing now. There's always a couple of missing now. And that's probably the more devastating side of it, for the hijinks and the
yeah,
laughter and the tears that we shared and the enjoyment that we shared and the suffering that we shared. They're things that, as I think now, a wee bit, when you get a wee bit more emotional about it because you're that little bit older and there's certain things happen, that you get the bit of emotion sometimes runs away with you, because you always wish that you'd be able to stick that group together. Oh, we've got to get together next year, or a get together
yeah.
next year. And unfortunately, you never have the precious moments. But when you look back and you share the precious moments with them, you think to yourself how fortunate you were.
Yeah, I think you cherish them more now, Peter, don't you? Because of the
Oh,
passage
absolutely.
of time, and you do realise that you lose uh, people along the way, and the persons that we've lost from the Lisbon Lions, and obviously the centenary team and all that.
Yeah, well, it tells
You
you
will
that we're
forever
human
mourn them.
beings.
Yeah,
Yeah,
correct. Yeah,
we're human beings. We're footballers, but we're human like everyone else. We're
yeah,
very fortunate and privileged, of course, in the respect of that. But as I say, we're human beings and we've no divine right for anything. And as you say, there was divine intervention. We sharing the dressing room with the guys, and that's a big thing that I'm very, very proud of, and I will always be grateful for.
and I've asked before that, because obviously that was, you guys get dressed up like that because it was Celtic the musical that was out, wasn't it? And it's been rerun a few times. I think it's been rerun like this year or next year as well. But it must have been great fun to do that dressed up in the original Celtic stuff and the brill creamed hair and the moustaches and all that. And you can only look back at that and laugh, because the camaraderie there must have been sensational. I can
Some of
only
them didn't get
imagine.
dressed up. Some of them that was natural. Some of them that was the gear they wore. There wasn't much change in some of them, let me tell you. But no, it was a special moment. But it also let you know that what you were following and what you were representing.
Oh yeah.
I think that was the biggest thing. And that was the biggest thing that we were always told. Always remember what you're representing. You're a Celtic player 24/7, and you're representing the history of the club previous and in the future. So make sure you try and do that in the best way you possibly can. And they were the things that always stopped you, and that's what you always done every time you went in there. Sometimes we let ourselves down at certain things, of course, but and the whole, that's what you always, as I say, you're always representing it. And something that I probably take with pride now when people talk to you, whatever, the people, the first thing they always say, you mentioned teams I've been involved with since, people always Peter Grant to Celtic, or Peter Grant played with Celtic. They forget everything else. They don't say anything else.
Yeah.
And as I say, sometimes I scratch my head and say, did I? Really? And you're very warmed with the fact that people remember you for that. And as I say, that tells you what the club is and the size of the club. And as I say, what we were representing. And I know they pictures we all laugh about, and I laugh and I think, wow, what a fantastic honour and privilege it was. But you say to yourself, we were representing all the guys that had done it all the years prior to us and made it possible for us, and that's what we always had to be grateful for. And I think people would get a bit fed up at times when I used to say that every day I taken it as a prisoner in there. I did, because I knew it maybe not last. I didn't know how long it'd last. I didn't know if it'd last that day or the next day. So every time I was in there, I wanted to stay in it as long as I possibly could and as long as I could. And hence getting the janitor monocle, because of the fact that I was first in and last to leave, because I knew one day it'd come to an abrupt end, as it does to all players, unfortunately.
You mentioned there a name, the janitor, but you also had another name, the pointer, and I've spoke to you about this before. I think you were also called the Pope, but we'll leave that one there. I think that's self-explanatory. But the pointer was the one that probably followed you around, wasn't it? And it's just one of these things, isn't it? You're probably blissfully unaware of it, aren't you?
Yeah, it was. It was funny because obviously it's completely different television now. Yeah. 24/7, you can watch your games and whatever. For us, but if you were out, you never got to see you playing, And then video came a little bit later, obviously. If you're fortunate to know how to work it, you had a video recorder. But if somebody swallowed that up or you got it broke, it was like the old tapes. You lost the game forever. So even if you taped it or somebody scrubbed it, as they said in that particular time.
Yeah.
But the point, it was strange because it's only when you watch it you think, point. And then I realised, that you talked with your hands. And I still do it at a certain extent. But the things I was taught a place to go in a different direction to where I was pointing. That was the thing, You'd be talking to somebody going to the right, but you're pointing to the left, and you could hear yourself. And as I say, I'd have hated to play with me in the respect of that, because I was moaning face and moaning all the time and shouting all the time, and a few of the players have said that in their books in recent years, and you were completely different off the pitch, but that was the way it was. That was probably my strength. I knew everybody's role within the team and what everybody's role had to be, because I was the sort of player that needed to know that, because then if anything happened on the pitch, I'd be able to try and organise that. Obviously, playing wise, it was much better quality than me, but I had a strength in that. I always felt the strength of me was helping being the good teammate for everybody else. Hence, obviously, probably coming out of the fact that he ended up starting to point. I don't know, and then obviously becomes Peter the Pointer. So I take that way, good fun like everything else, no problem whatsoever. I'd love to be mentioned as a superstar and remembered as a superstar, but unfortunately, I'll be remembered as a pointer.
Now we've reached top 2 time, Peter. That was number 3. So number 2 in your list of top 5 Celtic moments.
Number 2, I think this was a sort of fine line. There was 2 of them really. I'll give you the one I was going to say my home debut against Hibs, but because that was always a dream to run out at Celtic Park. But the more I looked at it was Paisley winning my first ever league title, for Celtic. we've talked about boyhood dreams. You just think they're a million miles away. You're never going to achieve that. You think you could get maybe a cup, but not even with Celtic, maybe with somebody else. You'd never think you'd be fortunate enough to pull the hoops on or whatever. You always had a dream just to be a footballer. And if it meant being Celtic, that was you going outside your the stratosphere, really. But for me, obviously, the cup, the championship win at Paisley that day, yet again, a wonderful team, a really good team, actually, a top team with top players in it, top quality. And we'd obviously been on a run of games. I'd missed the last few, but yet again, with a hamstring strain. So I played most of the games, missed about 3 or 4, maybe 3. And then we played a midweek game at Fir Park, I'm sure, in a catch-up game. And Davey said to us, listen, I'm going to put you on the bench. How do you feel? Bear in mind, there was only 2 subs at that particular time. There was some top quality players getting left out. And I said, oh, my hamstring feels fine, like, you know, and come on in the particular game. And then, obviously, at Paisley, he said, you're on the bench again. I was like, wow, I was gobsmacked because I was like, brilliant, you know. But I'd played most of the games I say in the season. But getting into the game, it was a bizarre feeling because I've said it many times. I'd taken the car because going to the supporters club, and forgive me, Oban or Fort William Celtic Supporters Club, because I get mixed up with both. I think I've been using the same story all the time, but it's been in the wrong environment. I'm going to. It was either Oban or Fort William I was going to, so I'll need to correct it. And I'd get someone to drive my car. I'd driven my car, to Paisley on that particular day. Because obviously Hearts had been on an unbelievable run. We couldn't see them getting beat. They only needed a point. But we knew we'd win. And we could win with the goals we needed. I think we needed 4 at that particular time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all these things, scenarios. So somebody taking my car to Love Street, obviously. Go there and end the game. And obviously Love Street at that particular time. So I'm warming up behind the goal. Obviously, when everything's kicking off and the big grass bit there, but it was an eerie atmosphere. Bear in mind how well we'd played that particular day and scoring one of the fantastic goals.
Yeah.
You know, it was world class. If anybody had scored it, even nowadays, people would be talking about it, how good a goal it was. And the team was outstanding that day. Obviously, won the game 5-0. But the surreal happenings round about the game and during the game is things that always stick with me forevermore. You know, the quietness, celebrating quickly the goals, and then listening to the radios, false information coming, all the different things that was coming, summed up probably when Kidd scored, we thought it was Walter Kidd, not Albert Kidd, you know. So that sort of put everything, summed up the day really, more than anything else. But then when the news come on, that obviously it was Albert had scored, and then again, and you see the reaction of the supporters was surreal, you know. And it was one of these moments you have to pinch yourself. You know, Peter Grant, League Winners Medal, you know. I think it was my second season. You know, and you're thinking, wow, is this real? You know. But all of a sudden, the reality comes back, all the celebration on the pitch, and all I'm thinking is, I've got to get to the manager. And I'm saying to the gaffer, Davey, who was a fantastic manager, great man, great for me. And I say, gaffer, I've got to go to Oban or Fort William. I'm playing the year there and I've got to go. I've got to make sure I turn up. So my car's out. He said, no, you need to go back to Celtic Park. He said, you need to come back to Celtic Park first. I was like, okay, right. So at the end of my car, so it was me and Big Paul McGugan were actually going to the Player of the Year do. And there was no way we were letting them down. So we got back to Celtic Park. We get in there, can't have a drink obviously because I'm going to be driving the car. So the boys are on the champagne and you're, oh dear, you know. So bear in mind that I try to get back. The first place was pandemonium. Get back there, see the boys for about an hour and say, right, we need to go. And both of us went to the supporters do. And it was brilliant. It was a brilliant night. And what a better place to put it, you know, being in amongst the Celtic supporters as players. I don't think they expect us to turn up. We were there for about 10 o'clock, I think, you know, because we got there as quick as we could. Yeah. And it was a fantastic night and a great memory. But also the fact that it was because it was my first, obviously, championship. And it was something that you always dreamt of, you never ever thought would come true. You never ever thought you'd get anywhere near it, never mind pull a Celtic jersey on. You never ever thought that. And to win that, and I think to be a Celtic player, you have to win the championship. That's what Celtic do. That's what Celtic are supposed to do. They're supposed to do that all the time. And probably you were a bit blasé with it because in my first 3 years, I think 3 years, I'd probably won 2 championships, or 4 years, I'd won 2 championships, and you just think that's the norm. And then obviously the devastation of the next 6 years comes in when you don't win nothing. So that just shows you never ever get carried away. Which we never ever did, because you knew every time you put on the jersey, you were fortunate enough because there was always a player, because there was no such thing as Bosman rulings at that particular time, and there was no transfer window, so you could be sold or somebody could be bought every single day of the year, so you never. That's why our training pitch was like a battlefield, with peer players kicking each other every day, because that was the way it was. It was so competitive. Everybody wanted to play in the match on the Saturday. And that was something you learnt very, very young. And I was very, very fortunate enough to play with that. But it was, yet again, another memory that you'll go down and people look at, because even to this day, I always still thought we won on points, and you don't realise that you won it on goal difference, and that's a big thing. I mean, there's only 2 occasions. As I played Liverpool with West Ham United, and we drew 3-3 in the cup final, a fantastic cup final, and we drew 3-3. I still think we lost 3-2, but I didn't realise we lost in penalty kicks, and it's a bit like Celtic, when we won the league that year. I thought we'd won it in points, and you get further down the league, because people think players look at tables. We didn't. We just went out and played, because if you did, we need to score 4 and 5. Everybody would be talking about it. But that particular time, it wasn't like social media, everything you put on. Somebody would talk about it, you'd hear it, and then you could just blank it, and just go on with it, because it wasn't there all the time. You weren't picking up a newspaper all the time and anything like that. So you could just sort of, if you wanted to blank yourself from it, you could. So there was no things like that. So to win it goal difference in the way we did, especially against a Hearts side who were tremendous that season, fantastic young group of players who played exceptionally well, and I think it was maybe 22 games that went unbeaten or something like that, and for us to dig in there and play catch-up games and keep going showed you not just what type of men that I was fortunate enough to be part of, a group of men that just knew how to win. They'd won before and they could go and win again. The Dannies, the Tommies, the Murdos, the Davy Provins, all these guys had all won before, so they knew what it took to win. Probably that was the thing with Hearts. Hearts didn't know probably how to win, because they probably hadn't been there before. These guys knew you had to keep going, and to that last punch is through, you're always in the game, and that's what they did, and that's why we done, and that's why we ended up winning it. And as I say, it's a fantastic memory and something that people still talk about at this moment in day. So I've been very fortunate enough to be part of things that people still talk to at this moment in time, because it was occasions that were a bit surreal, actually.
I think it's in the pantheon of great league victories, isn't it? People always talk about 10 men won the league and all that in 79. Love Street 86 is always in their kind of top few memories. And as you say, that's your first ever league winners medal for Celtic. And, you win it on goal difference. I mean, that says
Well,
it
it's
all. I
ironic
mean,
you're talking about that one. Some of the boys that won 10 men won the league. There was a lot of the boys playing at Love Street.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. That could probably be the slight difference.
Correct.
And that's the character, the men. Me as a young man, you're getting in there and you've got that enthusiasm. There's a nervousness and an excitement, whatever you want to call it. But these boys knew how to handle the pressure. They'd been there before and they'd done it.
Yeah.
And they knew they could win. And I knew the build up to the game. I could always remember it. We knew we could score 4. And that was no disrespect to St Mirren. We knew we could. And as you say, we scored 5. But obviously the result going for us, nobody ever seen that coming. And that's why that's the moments always set in history. And people they'll talk about certain moments that people always go back to. Remember that one at Paisley. Remember the centenary team. And that's why I was blessed, and I've been very fortunate in that respect to be part of such occasions, and it's something I'll cherish always.
before we go on to your number one, I wanted to ask you what it was like to play in a Celtic team beside the maestro, because people of my age and your age, you're just slightly older than me. I think a lot of them think that the maestro is, one of their heroes and arguably one of the best players they've ever seen. Spoken to various people about Paul McStay, and they just say he was just enormously talented and gifted, and maybe he should have left Celtic when he had the chance, but he didn't, and he was a kind of one club man, and people revere him for that. But he's in the greatest Celtic 11 of all time, was voted for by the fans, and that's no mean feat, Peter. I think that tells you it all, doesn't it, about someone's ability when you consider the great Celtic teams that have been there, and Paul McStay's in that midfield of the greatest ever Celtic 11. So I think there's no higher accolade, really, is there?
Well, put that in perspective when you're talking about the 6 years that we had without a trophy.
Correct.
And that tells you how good he was. He's probably his biggest thing. And it's wrong because he had a confidence, he had this inner belief. He was a real talented player, wonderfully quick feet. People didn't realise Paul couldn't run out your road. I think I even beat him in the sprints. But he had unbelievable quick feet and a change of direction. He was brilliant at that. But while he was doing that, his head was up and he could see the pass, which I always remember. My father, God rest him, he said, if you've not got a first touch in a final pass, put your boots in the bin. And all the things that Paul had, you could see that, that first touch was great. His final pass was always looking to be positive. It was, and I understand what people say, probably be with everyone else, he'd have probably had to leave Celtic at that particular time, to become a so-called great in everybody else's eyes and be picked with some people talk about players and they very rarely mention Paul. Apart from Celtic supporters, I don't mean Celtic supporters out with, as a superstar player, because he would have been. There is absolutely doubt he could have played in any company. That's the biggest accolade I could probably play him. And along with that, you wouldn't have known anything with him. I was fortunate enough to share a room with him for about 14 years. I'm not sure he was fortunate enough for that, but 14 years. So we did a lot of suffering together. We had enjoyment together. We had a hell of a lot of fun. We had a couple of glasses of red wine. He changed his name to Philippe for Bordeaux. We things like that, which it was very quiet, unassuming, and he likes football, do the talking. And we go back to the Airdrie Cup final. That's why it was vital for me that someone like Paul McStay, as a captain of Celtic Football Club, deserved to lift a trophy as a Celtic captain, know. And for me, it's great for him, his family, because that's the recognition he deserved. He was a wonderfully talented footballer. He was a wonderful guy. And then years later, I was fortunate his son and my son both shared the house together for a long time before COVID struck in, which was unbelievable, surreal, after all the years, because when Paul had moved away to Australia, which I never ever seen, because bear in mind he would hallog out his road, before when he lived in Glasgow, and all of a sudden when I heard he was going to Australia, it was a bit like me going to England. I thought that I'd have lasted 5 minutes. I thought it was a joke when I heard somebody said that Paul was going to Australia, because he was so much a homebird, as he'd proven through his career. But talent-wise, an unbelievable footballer, up there with the very best, and deserves to be in that company. And if you talk about the greats of Celtic, I'm talking about the Bobby Murdochs, the Bertie Olds, the midfield area of Celtic at that particular time of 167. Paul to be selected in the best 11 with Celtic says more than enough. Than I can put any words for him. I can only talk to him. I was fortunate enough that he was a teammate, a very close friend in that period of time, and a roommate for a long, long time. But as I say, we had a lot of suffering together. But him as an individual player was unbelievable talent, and rightfully deserves to be in that top 11.
But I don't think Hans Krankel ever understood his French accent, did he?
One of the funniest
Before you go to you need to tell people that, because it's just as an aside, the Rapid Vienna game,
Well, just in the Rapid Vienna game, and it was in the middle of it, and all commotion was going on, and we picked the ball up. So me and Paul are standing talking to each other on the pitch. I'm waiting, actually. I think it was just about the time we got the penalty, and I've got the penalty, so I'm taking the penalty. So the penalty's taking about 10 minutes, and we're still not taking the penalty. So we're standing, and Crankle's come up and said something to me and Paul, standing, and Paul's went like, "Hands, you are a cheat." I thought it was like something from Hello, Hello. You know what I mean? I'm like, what is this that's going on here? And I just started laughing. I'm serious on the football pitch. And I just started like, what did you say there? And I think even himself, at 10 himself, was surprised, you know what I mean? So maybe that's when he gets Philippe from Bordeaux with that stupid French accent, you know what I mean?
I was thinking.
But it was hilarious. Hans Krankel sort of looking at him as if to say, what did he say there? Sort of thing. Bilingual Paul
That's a brilliant story.
The bilingual Paul McStay. That was as much as we could get. Hello.
I love that. I love that story. It's absolutely brilliant. Now, trumpets and fanfare now. Peter Grant's number one or his top Celtic moment. Take it away, sir.
Well, you always have dreams. We all have dreams, and I've spoken like your first day at school, what you want to be this, you want to be that, and then first day at high school, what you want to do. I'm going to play for Celtic, sir, and whatever, My dream was obviously to be a footballer. Well, obviously the ultimate dream is I want to be a footballer for Celtic Football Club. That was it. Everything comes along. That's what I wanted to do. I tried everything. You played your Kirby, catching the ball in your chest, played Kirby yourself, and all the things. The one touch off the wall, all for one dream, to one day that hopefully they get an opportunity to pull the green and white hoops on. So it was quite bizarre how the history all started, because the reason I ended up going to Celtic as a young kid, and I'll come to what the number one choice is because I became an S for him, played for the school teams, Aloysius Primary, played in cup finals, played in the 3 cup finals, played at Thorneywood Juniors against Thorneywood. We beat them 4-1 the first game. I scored 2, centre forward. Played the second game at Bellshill Juniors. We won 3-2, scored 3, scored the hat trick. We won 3-2. Played the third game at Bellshill, won 5-2, scored 2, centre forward. John Clark's assistant manager of Celtic recommends to Celtic that they sign me. I go to Celtic as a centre forward, play for the boys' club. Never played centre forward ever in my life again. Ever. First year at Celtic Boys Club, play centre half, get player of the year, score 40 goals. Still never ever play as a centre forward. Then all of a sudden end up in the middle of the pitch. Then get the opportunity to get into Celtic full time at 15. Then the big dream comes. Played a few reserve games because there was no reserve fixtures at that particular time. No youth team. There was an under-16s at the boys' club, and then you played for the reserves. But this particular year, they had a BP Youth Cup for the very first time, and we were fortunate enough to win it. I captained the side. We won. We beat Dundee United at Tannadice, Aberdeen at Pittodrie, and Rangers at Ibrox. Rangers at Celtic Park, 2-0 in the final. Great, they're all great players. Ian Durant and all them were all playing at that particular time. Then all of a sudden, played a few games in the reserves, and normal Saturday morning routine, playing against every reserves. Got a phone call to tell me I had to get in a little bit early. Then the number one dream comes true. Got an opportunity to make my debut for Celtic against Rangers at Ibrox. To say was mind-blowing was probably the understatement, because when I come back, I thought the game was just going to be early, the kick-off was just going to be early for the reserve game. But as I've walked in the door at Celtic Park, 2 absolute legends, heroes of mine, Jimmy Johnson and Bobby Lennox, both walked towards us and just look at me and start, and just threw a nervous laugh. "Morning, son, you'll get your first breather about 10 o'clock tonight." And I just sort of laughed because it was they two, and they were heroes of mine. And it was a nervous laugh more than anything else. And then Brian Scott comes just out behind him. He says, "Listen, the gaffer wants to see you, son, in the physio room." So I'm like, "Oh, what's this now?" So I get into the physio room. Bear in mind, the furthest thing from my mind, Get into the physio room, there's nobody there. I thought, I've been wound up with the senior staff, you know what I mean, sort of thing. They're just laughing. But the next thing, the door opens and Davy Hay walks in, the manager, Gaffer. I went, all right, Gaffer. He went, all right, son. And he just tapped me on the shoulder. He said, listen, son, you're playing over at Ibrox today. If I didn't think you could do it, you wouldn't be playing. And just walk back out. And I started sobbing. I just started breaking down in tears. I went, it's the first manager I ever swore to. I went, you're effing joking. And he went, he didn't even answer me. He just walked out the door and just left me. I just couldn't, I just shaking like a leaf. Shaking like a leaf. It was so surreal. And I just couldn't take it in really, actually. So you're over there with the Danny McGrains and all these sort of guys that was your heroes. All of a sudden, I'm on the team bus with them, you know, and just thinking, this is bizarre. Is this a dream I'm in here? Is somebody going to wake me up here? And I go over to Ibrox, and you're in the dressing room and you're looking around you and you're thinking, I'm actually starting this game. And I just couldn't stop my right leg shaking. That was shaking, actually. And the only time I stopped shaking was when I got onto the pitch. That was it. Okay, get the ball and whatever. And we just moved the ball about, whatever is part of the warm-up, because you didn't do organised warm-up at that particular time. And you talk about how it's life-changing. Unfortunately, the result didn't go for us. Bobby Williamson scored an overhead kick. We get beat 1-0. But I come off that game and all of a sudden, and you're about your normal business. You're walking up to the shop. You're walking down the street to get the bus and whatever. But then you realise that everybody seems to know who you were and who. And I was like, I just found it totally bizarre, you know. So the number one for me was because it was always a dream. And the only thing that came close to it was the following week when we played against Hibs at Celtic Park. Because that was always my dream, was to run out at Celtic Park in front of walk on. And as I say, if anything I could turn around and say, well, I wish the Rangers game was at Celtic Park, that would have been my first game.
Yeah.
But the debut was at Ibrox, which was fantastic. But I'd always this in my head. And the thing that came after the Hibs game, which was particularly nice, was the fact that the school teacher that asked me the first day at high school, who said to me, you and a million others, was waiting outside to shake my hand.
Oh, brilliant.
And that was something that always stuck in my mind, because I just let you know that we all talk about dreams and having these big dreams and wishes and whatever. When they come true, you're very, very fortunate, you know, but you have to believe that you're going to gain that. You've got to work hard to get it. And I was very fortunate enough that people were trusting me enough to give me the opportunities. And I'll never forget them for it. That's why, as I say, I hold them so close, because I don't think they realise the special moments they gave you, like Davey giving you your debut, you know, sort of thing, you know. Big Billy and Tommy and that trusting you when you're injured to wait on you, things like that. They don't realise, they know it's part of their job, but they don't realise how much that meant to you. And that's why I actually held them in such high regard. So probably number one is the first time you're pulling that jersey on, obviously for me, the greatest football club in the world, was always the dream that I had. And I was very fortunate enough that happened.
I don't think anyone would ever dispute that. For 15 years, you lived the dream, Peter, which is more than any of us can say. And you wore the badge with pride and honour, and it still means everything in the world to you. I think everybody will agree with that. I just have to say that's been an hour and 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't enjoyed that, then wow. I don't know where you'll find 70 minutes of utter enjoyment like that, but I just have to say,
utter rubbish.
not this, right? I could talk to you all day, because it's just it's the wonderful entity that is Celtic Football Club. But to hear it come from somebody like yourself, and I know how much that means to you, to live your dream. I'm kind of living my dream by speaking to guys like yourself, and I do the next best thing to playing it, I guess, being involved in football journalism, but it can be nothing to playing it. And I think everybody would agree that some of those memories there are outstanding, Peter, and it doesn't matter what anyone ever says. They just cannot be erased from history, or taken away from you. And as you say, for 15 years, you lived your dream, and I think that's I'll applaud that because I think it's worth applause, and you did it with distinction and honour, and you saw some real bad times as well, which you've never forget, and it's kind of made you the person you are. I've always had a great rapport with yourself. You've always been nothing but kind to me, so I can only say thank you for doing that. That was the Celtic Way sit down, the top 5 Celtic moments of Peter Grant. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as I did. I'll be watching this and I look, you better believe it. And I can ask you, guys, again, the ticker tape running along the bottom. We ask you all the time. If you enjoyed this, then why not take out a subscription to the Celtic Way and help support top quality football journalism covering the club you love, and hit that subscribe button, www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. I've been Tony Haggerty, but all that remains for me to say is, Peter Grant, thank you so much. Absolute honour, pleasure and a privilege listening to that. That was Peter Grant's top 5 Celtic moments, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Pleasure, Tony.